Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, local leaders are demanding more mental health services in San Diego.
We can't wait another 6 months, another year and a half. Our communities are suffering because of the lack of mental health services, and so it's time for Tri-City to step up.
Why they're going after Tri-City Medical Center and what happens if it doesn't comply within 30 days. Plus, San Diego City Council votes to keep temporary tent shelters for homeless people open. How this will help the thousands of people currently living on the streets. And the need for relief, the health risk for homeless women who can't find a bathroom. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, June 11th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Mental health and psychiatric services are in short supply in San Diego, but county leaders say that needs to change. KPBS's Matt Hoffman reports it could happen if a newly proposed plan is approved.
Tri-City Medical Center shut down its inpatient mental health and crisis stabilization units last year. Tri-City made the move citing inadequate reimbursement rates for psychiatric services, costly facility upgrades required by the federal government, and a shortage of qualified psychiatrists. But now there appears to be a plan to bring those mental health services and more back. County Supervisor Jim Desmond was in a meeting today with Tri-City and Palomar Health, and after months of discussion, there seems to be a proposal on the table.
What came out of the meeting is we agreed to move forward with a framework to try to make sure that the services, the behavioral health services in North County are fulfilled. And so what we did is we said, okay, we want to move forward on this. We want to phase in a program, and we want to concentrate on putting in behavioral health beds, crisis stabilization centers, and transitional or step-down beds.
Desmond says with this framework, they're hoping to bring more inpatient beds to the North County than were lost with Tri-City. The county would theoretically help with funding these services.
The hospitals have the facilities and the potential for the beds and things like that. And so we have money for programs and dollars for that. So we're going to be, working out those details. But they first have to go to their boards. So nothing was really finalized today.
It's unclear exactly how many inpatient beds the proposal would bring to the North County. The announcement today comes just a day after County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher and Assemblywoman Tasha Berner Horvath sent a letter to Tri-City saying they had failed to make progress on a plan to restore mental health services in the area. Fletcher believes Tri-City has been dragging its feet on the issue.
It's time for discussions to turn into details and to turn into action. I just want this problem solved, and I want Tri-City to be a part of the solution. And that's all we're saying is we can't wait another 6 months, another year and a half. Our communities are suffering because of the lack of mental health services.
Desmond says he had been in discussions with Tri-City for months, and this letter did not have an impact on today's framework announcement. Desmond says the two North County hospital boards are expected to take up the proposals within the next few months. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks, Matt. San Diego City Council members vote to keep 3 temporary homeless shelters open for another year. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen explains the funding for these shelters has been a challenge.
Mayor Kevin Faulkner has made the 3 bridge shelters a key part of his response to the homelessness crisis. The shelters were opened in the wake of the hepatitis A outbreak in 2017, which hit the city's unsheltered population hard. They're meant to be a bridge between living on the streets and permanent housing, but their operators have struggled to move people into permanent housing. And 2.5 years after the shelters opened, the city still hasn't identified a permanent funding source for them. Councilman Chris Ward says that needs to be addressed.
We need to think about a long-term funding stream to be able to support this. I have also reservation, and we need to probably spend the next, make that a priority as a council this coming year about what the plan is for both temporary and long-term solutions.
Reliable data on homelessness is hard to come by, but no one is saying the crisis has gotten much better. Still, council members say the shelters are a necessary short to medium-term solution to keep more people off the streets. Now, in a last-minute action, the council decided against moving one of the shelters from Golden Hall to a vacant lot at 17th and Imperial. They say the Golden Hall shelter is a safer and more stable location. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Thanks, Andrew. The number of homeless people sleeping outside in downtown San Diego is slightly up, but the number of bathrooms available to them is down. KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy talked to some homeless women about their daily struggle to find a toilet.
The number of homeless people sleeping in parks and on sidewalks in and around downtown San Diego is nearly unchanged from 2 years ago during the hepatitis A outbreak. A count in May by the Downtown San Diego Partnership, which conducts monthly counts, found more than 850 unsheltered men, women, and children. The difference now is makeshift camps that used to line city blocks are no longer tolerated, and sidewalks are regularly power washed. But one thing that hasn't changed much, according to homeless people sleeping on the streets, is the number of available bathrooms, especially at night.
There are very few places for us to use the restroom out here, and most of us don't want to use outside, but sometimes we have to. We have to go to the bathroom somewhere.
Ramona Garcia says she's been homeless for 4 years. She says a lack of bathrooms has caused her to have rashes and poor hygiene.
The porta potties went away. There used to be some 2 porta potties right out here around the library, and those went away. And there used to be some in the parking lot down that way. Those went away.
Ashley Donaldson became homeless last month. She says finding a bathroom is her biggest challenge.
It's inhumane to have somebody hold their urine for so long.
Donaldson says she's had no choice but to use the bushes on several occasions.
I actually have had multiple accidents due to it. Lost a lot of clothing because of it, because a lot of people I have overactive bladder syndrome. So the big thing is if I don't find a bathroom within a certain amount of time, I can't hold it.
Kathleen Wolf says she's been homeless for more than a decade. She says not much has changed.
The only place to go is St. Vincent's or the porta potties, which is hard to find. It's hard to find a bathroom.
The city of San Diego deployed 16 porta potties to downtown streets during the hepatitis A outbreak, which killed 20 people and sickened nearly 600, but many have since been removed. A city spokesperson says some of the toilets were taken away when the large tent shelters, called bridge shelters, went up. Homeless advocate Michael McConnell says the conditions continue to be a health hazard.
The bridge shelters filled up, and now the streets are back to filling up also. So it's only a matter of time until we deploy the proper kinds of resources, the coordination to actually get folks off the street that will eliminate that risk. We're not that far behind San Francisco and Los Angeles. We could be there very, very quickly if we don't get on this and create a sense of urgency to deal with it.
Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Unfortunately for people living on the streets, keeping porta potties open is costly. The price tag to operate 3 porta potties located side by side on 16th Street in East Village is $29,000 each month. They're not connected to the sewer and there's no running water. A San Diego City spokesperson says the bulk of the cost comes from 24-hour security and a portable solar-powered light. KPBS spoke to one of the security guards who says more than 100 people use the toilets each day. Most are homeless.
You carry knives, needles, and stuff like that. So I also have pepper spray. If someone tries to physically attack me, there's always steps of escalation, but I usually just try and talk to them like humans, and that works most of the time.
He also says the toilets are cleaned every day and restocked with toilet paper twice a day. It's day 2 of the first heat wave to hit San Diego this year. The county is currently under heat warnings and advisories. Meteorologist Erin Calandra shows us what we can expect in the coming days.
We are seeing another hot one today. In fact, part of the interior parts of the county now under a heat advisory that expires around 9 o'clock tonight. The excessive heat warning that is still going on for the deserts, and that is in effect at least through tomorrow. That's because the temperatures, they are just dangerously warm. A heat advisory is a combination of heat and humidity, making temperatures feel over 100 degrees for at least 2 days, and the nighttime temperature is above 75. Now the excessive heat warning, that's above 105 degrees. So certainly some very warm conditions. We have some records challenged, even broken today. Bakersfield, California. That record was 109 back in the 70s, getting close today at 105. And in Palm Springs, 114 is the record from the 1940s. We are tying that. So that tells you it has been a very warm one. Now here is the satellite and radar. Perhaps a couple of clouds creeping in along the coast. That's going to give us a little bit of relief for our beach communities. But the interior parts of the county are going to continue to just sizzle. For tonight, we're at 64 degrees in the metro area. Partly cloudy, and Oceanside at 61, Ramona reaching 61, Borrego Springs sitting at 82 degrees for the low. That's going to be the coldest point of the night. Now, this high pressure system is firmly in place. It's grabbing up that dry, warm air from the south, and the deserts, they are just cooking, and that's how it's going to be for at least another day or so. So Ramona tomorrow, 91 degrees, San Diego at 75, our average is 70, so getting closer. Mount Laguna at 81, and Borrego Springs sitting at 111. Late week, still warm and still dry with that jet stream to the north of us. Temperatures are going to slowly drop along the coast. By the weekend, we'll be in those low 70s. It's going to remain sunny and beautiful. Inland, expect to see temperatures go from the mid 80s to the upper 70s. Again, it's going to stay sunny and just beautiful conditions throughout the weekend. In the deserts, well, we finally drop out of the hundreds on Friday. We get a break at 98 degrees. It's still going to be sunny each day. And in the in the mountains, it's going to be sunny and nice. We go from the low 80s to the low 70s by Friday. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
The Midway Museum and San Diego State are partnering up. It was announced this morning on the Midway. The program will create a new area of study focusing on military history. The partnership is made possible by a $3 million donation from the Midway Museum. That's the single largest donation ever received by San Diego State University's College of Arts and Sciences. Leaders of the two institutions say the program will benefit future students.
We are bound by a shared commitment in service to our community and to our region. Each of our institutions has a special commitment to serving the next generation of San Diegans.
The program plans to start taking students in 2021. In a retirement home in Oceanside, there's a man with a story straight out of a movie. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us about his life with Hollywood legends, from the Duke to the King of Rock.
Come in and welcome to my cottage here.
87-year-old Ed Faulkner is taking us inside his room at Brookdale Oceanside. He sits down and pulls out a photo album.
This is from McClintock, where I get punched and go down the mudslide.
Horse walking away, huh? Honest, Mr. Jones,
Faulkner has appeared in many Hollywood films, including John Wayne's 1963 McClintock.
Oh, this is a fight sequence from McClintock, Pat Wayne. And of course, he beats me up. I never won a fight. Yeah, I was always the bad guy.
Faulkner grew up riding horses in Kentucky, which he says gave him an edge for Westerns.
That's how I got started, was, they were doing a lot of Western series. And you had an advantage if you rode a horse.
Well, that ought to even things up, farmer. For what? Well, that sore nose you gave me the other day.
And the actors from New York, they'd say, do you know how to ride? They'd say, oh, I used to ride a lot back east. And we'd say, yeah, they were familiar with the horses on the merry-go-rounds.
She's telling the truth, Mr. McClintock. We wasn't doing nothing.
Well, that's not important right now.
They called John Wayne Duke, and Faulkner was in 6 of Duke's movies.
We don't go back without the general.
He even played a leading role in Wayne's 1968 Vietnam War movie.
They were going to cast it themselves, and it was called The Green Berets. So I thought, Jiminy Christmas, how am I going to work this? It sounds corny, but I wrote a letter, and I said something like, Dear Duke, like yourself, I worn a Stetson long enough. How about a change of hats, maybe a beret?
Faulkner says over the years he and Wayne became friends.
I played literally hundreds of games of chess with him. And as I tell people, I occasionally let him win.
Wayne even casted Faulkner and his family in the 1969 Western The Undefeated.
And dude came up and he says, "Are these your girls?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Luster." He was wardrobe. He says, "Put them in wardrobe." And they came out, you know, dressed, and it was a period piece. And that's how they got in it.
Were you perchance in the war, Mr. Thomas?
Faulkner also shared the screen with the King of Rock.
Brad, maybe you better show Mr. Beer where his quarters are. We'll put him in 7A with Stanley.
Yes, Miss Radford. This way.
Mr. Bentley, could you cut this for me, please?
He was in 2 Elvis movies, including Tickle Me in 1965.
Lady that was running this health spa, and she and I were kind of a, you know, a number, so to speak. But when he came in, and why he kind of swept everybody out of the picture, and I became a, you know, real donkey's backside. And he was really nice with me. I enjoyed Elvis. He was a good guy.
Sorry I had to do that.
Before he was on the silver screen, Faulkner was acting in TV shows.
In TV, when I got started, it was 61 years ago, which would make it 1958. When I started, the daily rate was $80 a day.
Faulkner was in dozens of movies and hundreds of television episodes, but he says they weren't all classics.
The Navy versus the Night Monsters.
That was the weirdest thing. It was the script was no good. It was a bad script. It was terrible.
Faulkner says, looking back on his career,
I've just been blessed in my life.
Faulkner now lives in a retirement home in Oceanside so he can be closer to his youngest daughter, Leslie. At the senior center, he enjoys sharing movies with friends.
Every 3 or 4 months, I'll pull out one of my movies and we'll advertise it, you know. And I'll go down and I'll tell them this movie was made 52 years ago. I was 35 when we made it.
You go to bed.
Yeah, and they say, "Is that you?" I say, "Yeah."
One false move on your part and my men won't miss.
Friends, your men have been missing me for years.
After the 1970s, Faulkner scaled back his acting.
I didn't want to pursue it anymore. I'd done what I wanted to do. I'd made some nice money.
He hopes when people see movies he's been in, they have a good time.
Oh, I hope they have fun, enjoy the movies. We had a good time.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Numbers show the elderly are prime targets for financial scams. But why? Marketplace's David Brancaccio spent a year analyzing the problem. Here's what he found.
I've just spent a year exploring the twilight world of older people targeted by scammers. Now, here's what drew me in. Something small. My father-in-law is in his mid-80s. And when we visit, his phone is ringing just about every 10 minutes or so with someone trying to pick his pocket one way or another, from subscriptions and refinancing that he doesn't need to full-on lying fraudsters. Well, it turns out that one ringing phone was just the tip of a massive problem. By one estimate, people 65 and older get defrauded out of $37 billion a year. Now, Americans of all ages and all tax brackets are targeted by fraudsters, yet older people tend to lose more money and have less time to recover their financial footing. There are a lot of things at work here. People 65 and older hold an enormous amount of the household wealth in America, and scammers know that's where the money is. Many older people live alone, a risk factor in itself. But here's what really floored me. Researchers who study this say that changes in the brain as part of the normal healthy aging process might be making many seniors into softer targets for scammers. Now, I've spent a year talking to experts, including medical researchers, and met concerned family across the country, and scam victims, like Judy. That is $166,000 in department store gift cards she was coerced to buy and turn over to a scammer.
I was nervous, but at that point I was under his spell. He said, "Do it," I did it. He could have told me to stand on my head in the middle of the street and I probably would have done it. I can't imagine what I was thinking. I was like a robot.
We're looking into this topic in our special series, Brains and Losses, the bottom line on aging and financial vulnerability. You can check out the whole series and find resources on this topic at marketplace.org.
Public expression is taking over Solana Beach. From PBS NewsHour and its student reporting lab, Westview High School students show us how it's motivating the next generation of artists.
Located in sunny San Diego, Solana Beach is home to very colorful and unique murals, statues, and sidewalks. Even the utility boxes lining the streets are canvases. Kayla Moschke is in charge of all of the public art in Solana Beach.
Since Instagram has come about, people always are looking for that catchy thing to have in their background, and what better way than to express it with some public art.
The city of Solana Beach recently hosted a month-long art show at City Hall, featuring artists from Sunset High School, nurturing the next generation of artists. Savvy Denny created Not Monet.
I think it's really important for especially young students to get their work shown out to the world if it's something that they care about.
One of these students may produce the next public art piece in Solana Beach. They're learning a lesson about taking risks.
I think that the public can be very judgmental of public art. Some of the older generation is a little bit more conservative and almost confused and off-put by new art. And I think everybody else seems to enjoy it, though. Everyone has their own opinions on it.
The thing I love about public art is that it's really controversial. And especially in our little city and everywhere you go, everyone has an opinion on art. Doesn't mean if it's good or bad or whatever, people are talking about it.
I'll walk through my town center where my dad lives, and they'll have art exhibits there sometimes. I think it's an exciting thing that can bring people together, no matter what area you're in. It's just a really exciting way to bring communities together.
The city wants to be a community committed to art and culture. Public art is a part of their master plan. For the PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs, I'm Yonso Sok.
We've heard of robots, but what about cobots? It's a robot that can collaborate with humans in a work environment. Chris Duell from SciTech Now explains the research and potential for this technology.
In the field of robotics, right, we now have this classification of robotics, or a field of area of research called collaborative robotics. And within that whole broad space of collaborative robotics, where there's applications where basically the human and the machine are interacting, let's say, more richly. In that, we're leveraging this type of hardware called the cobot. It's commonly referred to as a power and force limited collaborative robot. And that's what we've got here in the lab today.
Describe to us the difference between, robots and a large-scale robot and this one with human interaction. What makes this revolutionary?
Well, what's a little bit different here, again, I touched a little bit before, is the idea that it's power and force limited. Very common, like be it this orange and silver version or our silver and blue ones around the corner, they typically try to take consideration for how they align the joints to where we can actually eliminate, say, let's say scissor connections to where your fingers can actually be, let's say, caught in between a joint. The pinch point is eliminated in that way. So you see a lot of this basically offsetting of the joints. Now, that being said, a robot with a knife is just as dangerous, whether it's one of our big, heavy industrial friends or one of these smaller. So again, consideration of their application is still very important. It requires its own risk considerations. But again, I'm using some advanced sensors to actually monitor what the person's doing, and I'm applying some sense of safety zone. So as I get closer, the robot will slow down. I get closer, it slows down. I get real close, the robot stops.
One of the goals with cobots is ease of usage. There might be a guy on the floor who needs to program the robot. Now, I've only been in this collaborative robotics lab for just a few minutes, but I'm already prepared to program this robot.
You'll notice, again, a little bit similar to some of the other hardware, it has this ability to be taught through basically hand guiding. Very much more of a bright, if you will, tablet-style user interface to make it more user-friendly.
By what you're doing with this hand guiding, the cobot is learning that motion and it can be replicated.
One of the nice things about here compared to traditional robots is that basically I can guide it to a position, and then I can actually save that point, right? And I set it, and I've now saved that point. So basically as I guide it and I save the points, I can create new robot programs through this hand guiding. Are you ready to take it for a spin?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Yep, just get your hand in there.
So now, as I'm...
Yep, you engage the little safety switch on the back.
Yes.
And you are now a robot programmer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is being done in the lab? What's the mission of the lab? What types of things do you do day in, day out in this lab?
Perfect, that's a great question. It's actually very much a development space. So typically, the Institute, we have a lot of direct funded project work, be it from private industry, government application, but we also do advanced cutting edge work in our own internal research and development program to basically further what we can do with these capabilities in the collaborative robotics space, the idea of humans and people working closely together.
Can you talk about technology readiness, what it is, why it's important, and how you address it?
Yeah, so as part of that, when we talk about developing new and advanced applications, we need to be thinking about the technology readiness level, or TRL. It's basically a spectrum that assesses how ready this is, if you will, to go into the factory, right? So typically here, the Institute works in that TRL 4 to 7 range. We're basically taking it from, like, say, a concept or idea that works well in a lab and getting it into that factory. What we hope to see, obviously, and the reason we have this lab, is even moving the ball forward even further to where the idea that the human and the machine can actually work more cooperatively together to solve tasks, right? This machine can actually be an effective partner on that factory floor with the worker, and that's a really exciting thing to think about. It really changes, both makes the idea of working in production or a factory more appealing to a worker, and obviously increases productivity and the value proposition for all the manufacturers here in the U.S. and beyond.
You can see more stories like that one on SciTech Now, Sundays at 5:30 right here on KPBS. And you can find tonight's stories at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us.